What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato. Today, I want to talk to you about 5 lessons I learned about winning from the Tough Mudder. This past weekend was Tough Mudder number 4 for me, as you can see on my bandana. And I believe the reason you do something like this, you do an event like a Tough Mudder, is to be able to learn something about yourself and to be able to pull lessons from the challenge that you've just overcome. Hopefully, if you've done something, if you ever plan on doing a Tough Mudder or a Spartan or a marathon or whatever feels like a physical challenge to you, it might be a 5K, it might be a 10K, but if you ever plan on doing that, first, of course, is the training that leads up to it. If you ever plan on doing any of them, please train for it because you want your body to be physically prepared. So you learn lessons about yourself during the training as well, because during the training, depending on how far out you start your training, you'll get sometimes and you'll come over, you'll run into some mental obstacles where you're like, do I really want to do this? Is this something that that I'm really that excited about? Because, if you're doing your training progressively, then it's kind of getting harder and harder. And as it gets harder, you will have to overcome more and more mental obstacles. You are the biggest thing that stands in your way. So you learn lessons during that, but you learn a lot of lessons during the event itself. During, if it's a Mudder, if it's a Spartan, if it's just a 5K even, or a marathon, you learn lessons during the event, because during the event, you also overcome a lot of challenges. And Tough Mudder is unique because you have literal physical obstacles that you overcome. Spartan's the same way. There are other obstacle course races out there that are set up very similar, but Tough Mudder is unique even from Spartan. And as we'll go into our lessons, you'll understand why. But you not only have mental barriers that you overcome, you have literal physical barriers to overcome. And within the event itself, you cannot do it on your own. Physically, you can't do it alone. It's literally impossible to complete the thing from the beginning to the end with just you. And so we can learn a lot of lessons about winning that translate directly to life because it's the same. It is the same in life as it is to complete a Tough Mudder. If you want to complete a Tough Mudder, you need others. If you want to complete life, you need others. And as we'll learn through our lessons, that's without that, you cannot effectively do what you want to do in life. So, in order to know what winning is, we have to start with a definition of winning. But the thing is, one of the first lesson that we learn from the Tough Mudder is that winning is subjective. Winning is not defined by anybody else, meaning it is not quantitatively defined by society. It is defined by you. Winning is fully subjective. And this is the first thing that you can take from the Tough Mudder and translate into life. Because the way that the Tough Mudder is set up is that there's a beginning of it and there's an end and there's obstacles in between and you have to complete it. That's the goal. And you can go around obstacles. For instance, I went around, I think, 3 obstacles because I defined what winning was going to look like for this Mudder. It was the 4th one that I had done, and I'll do more after this, and I defined what winning looked like. 3 of the obstacles that I went around, or 2, I'm sorry, I held up a 2 and I said 3. 2 of the obstacles that I went around were the electrical obstacles. In other words, if you've done a Tough Mudder, they have 2 obstacles where literally you get shocked going through the obstacle. You can get through them without getting shocked, but it's super challenging. In the past 2 years, I've done those obstacles, but they're not challenging. So for me, winning was not doing those obstacles because the only benefit in my mind to doing them was so that I could say I did all the obstacles. I had done those before, I've completed them, and there's no way to do them better. all the other obstacles you can do better, or it gives you some sort of mental challenge you have to overcome every time you do it. For instance, there's another obstacle that they have called the mud horn, I believe is the name of it. It's basically like a 30-foot tall A-frame with a cargo net going up each side. And you have to climb up one side and then climb down the other side, which seems very simple. But if you're someone like me that is not a fan of getting even 5 feet off the ground, then it becomes more challenging. So every time I've done that obstacle, it is a challenge for me. Even though I can't technically do it better, I mean, I could go up and down faster, but it's a mental challenge for me every time I do it because I improve my fear of heights, and therefore I improve my overall fear. I'm not scared of getting electrocuted. I just don't see any benefit in going and doing an obstacle that I can't improve at. That I don't feel like is making me better. So I defined winning as doing better at all of the other obstacles, and I know that I'm going to not do these obstacles. I know these are the ones that I'm not going to do because I don't feel like they make me better. And I don't feel like winning during this Tough Mudder equals completing every obstacle. But in the beginning, like if you do your first or second one, you might define winning as completing every obstacle. Or you might define winning as attempting every obstacle. Of the 4 I've done, 3 of them were with at least 30 people. The first 2 that I did were with 30 people. The last one was with 50 people. And the average age of those groups was 50 years old. So as you can imagine, a lot of them were unsure of their abilities to complete a lot of the obstacles. So success or winning for a lot of them was attempting the obstacle. So both in life and in the Tough Mudder, success is subjective. You define what success is like. You define what happens. In life, if you're confronted with an obstacle and you sit and you think about it and you're like, okay, this is something that I don't want to work around, which is fine, which is okay. If you've thought through it and you're like, okay, I think I can go a different route and still get the same objective, then cool. You just go a different route and you can still get your same objective. You can still win. Okay, you don't have to stick to the same exact route. So life is the same way. You run into an obstacle, you're like, hey, I can go this way and I can still achieve success. Then you do that. Go that way, go around the obstacle instead of barreling through it, and you can still achieve success. So you get to define what winning is. You can't look around at others. You can't define your success or your winning by what others are doing. You can only define it by what you want. You have to know what that looks like for you. You have to decide what winning looks like. So that's the first thing, is you need to define what success looks like for you. What does winning look like? When it comes to the Tough Mudder, like I said, you get to choose. And they say that, like when you're lined up at the start line, they tell you, hey, there's these obstacles. If you can't swim, don't swim. If you don't like electric, or you have you have a heart problem, don't go to the electric. Don't suddenly try and challenge yourself for idiotic reasons because you feel like you need to. In life, a lot of people do the same thing, but they convince themselves to just not try at all. Well, I'm not going to be able to accomplish what that person accomplished, so I might as well not try at all. Well, you don't have to do what that person did. You can do what you want to do. That's the beautiful thing about life. So start with understanding what success looks like to you, and that will help you be able to maneuver through your life more effectively. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, it takes a village to win. It takes a village to win. In other words, another way to say it is no man is an island. So I already told you at the beginning of this that you literally cannot get through a Tough Mudder from beginning to end. You physically cannot do it from beginning to end without other human beings, without other people around, without assistance from other people. Life is the same way. Winning and success especially are the same way. I guess you could get through. Nope, you couldn't. You can't. You cannot get through life without the assistance, help, support of other people. It cannot happen. And so many people complain about having to work with other people or have other people as a support system and don't recognize that it is a necessity of life. It is a necessity of life. It is not something you get to choose. It's not something many people look at successful people sitting in their office and think, well, that person didn't. Well, do you know how many people they had to ask for help, who helped them along the way, mentors that helped them and guide them, people that they had to hire? That you cannot achieve anything in life without others. It just cannot be done. So one of the most effective skills that any human being can develop is the ability to effectively collaborate with other people. So as you're going through the Tough Mudder, you have no choice but to figure out how to collaborate with people to get over an obstacle. Okay? One of the obstacles, for instance, I think it's called the Muddy Mile, and it's basically like 5 mountains of mud that you go down into a pit that's about, I'd call it 8 feet down, and then you have to go up to the top of the next mountain of mud, and then back down, and then back up, and then back down, and then back up. And at the bottom of the pit, you're in probably 4 feet of water. So you literally can't get to the top without there being somebody there to pull you up to the top. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it is improbable for it to happen for most people. So you have to look and you have to collaborate with the person. You have to know, make eye contact with somebody. You have to tell them what you want. You have to look at somebody next to you if they're going to give you a knee or a hand to boost you up. Like, it's something you have to do. And in life, it's the same way. You have to know how to effectively collaborate and communicate with people so that you can get what you want. And that also means, which we'll see in a second, probably helping them get what they want along the way. So it takes a village. There's no getting around it. You can't do it any different. You cannot do anything without others. Here's another example, if you will, another story. If you've heard of Alexander the Great, Alexander the Great was the Macedonian king from a long time ago, 2,500 years ago plus, I think. And he basically conquered the known world by the age of 34. I think he died. He died at the age of 34. The only reason he didn't go conquer more, he probably would have found more world and conquered it as well. He potentially also could have found himself being the first person to the moon had he gotten that far, considering how much he did by the age of 34. But at any rate, everyone knows of Alexander the Great as the person who conquered the world. But Alexander the Great did not do anything on his own. He had to have an army. He could not have done anything that he did without an army, without generals, without even people back in Macedonia to help keep his kingdom running without him there. So it was literally impossible, but what we think about is the person. We think about Alexander the Great. We think about Martin Luther King. We think about Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, these individuals, but without a village around them to support them to do things, they could not have done what they did. And you are no different. Okay? Which leads us to lesson number 3, and that is you must also help others win if you want to win. And generally speaking, the more people you help win, the more likely you are to win and the higher your level of success you'll have. So again, you go back to the mutter, and you have no choice. It's hard to get through the mutter without helping other people. You could be that person and that guy who goes and you don't help anybody and people are just helping you. But probably eventually people will catch on, especially if you kind of stay within the same wave of people, and they'll realize that you're not helping anybody, and eventually they may stop helping you. They will revolt against you. That also happens in life. If people around you recognize that they're trying to help you and you're kind of making these strides and making this progress, but you're not helping them at all, you're not lending them a hand, you're not supporting them in any way, eventually they'll stop helping you. They'll stop supporting you. They will revolt against you, and you will deserve it, to be totally honest. So you cannot win in life. You cannot succeed in life without also helping others win and succeed in life. And the more people you help win, the more people you help succeed, the more you will also succeed. Literally, the higher level your success will be. If you think about what an entrepreneur is, they are a problem solver for a problem that you have. That's all an entrepreneur is. It is a person who sees a problem, creates a solution to the problem, and then helps ease your pain by selling it to you. And that's you supporting them. Hey, thanks for solving my problem for me. I will support you by giving you money, by buying this from you. And that's all an entrepreneur is. So if you play that out, the more somebody does that, the more successful they are. So Apple, for instance, sells a device that everyone likes and it solves many problems and it does it really well. And they're very successful. They sell many devices, actually. I'm just thinking of the iPhone. But because they sell devices that solve problems and the problems are done really well, and they've done that over decades and decades and decades, and they have a proven track record, people continue to buy their stuff because they continue to solve problems well. On a smaller level, the person who washes your house or cuts your grass for you is solving a problem for you. Your problem is you want your grass cut, or you want your house cleaned, or you want your car washed. That's your problem. And they're solving the problem for you. Now, the more people that person can solve the problem for, the more money they're going to make. And the same is for you. So whatever area you're in life, whether you have a career, whether you have a business, the more you can start to think outside of yourself and you can start to help others, the more you will find yourself in positions to achieve whatever level of success you want to achieve. That's just the way that it is. So that's lesson number 3. Number 4, we got 2 more lessons to get through. Number 4 is follow the 80-20 rule to win. So the 80-20 rule generally, Pareto's principle, is 80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts. That's not the rule that we're going to follow. We're not using the 80-20 rule as it is usually used. What I mean by this is 80% of your time should be spent thinking and being in the present. 20% of your time should be spent thinking and being in the future. And 0% of your time should be spent in the past. So as you're going through a Tough Mudder, you have literally no choice but to be where you are, because you're trying to complete an obstacle. You're trying to go from monkey bar to monkey bar and stay out of the water. You're trying to climb up a pile of mud. You're trying to go under a fence on your back with 4 feet of water underneath of you while keeping just your nose and your mouth above the water. I can't even describe that obstacle because it gives me, that's another one that is a very simple obstacle that helps me grow every time, but that also gives me chills every time I think about the obstacle. At any rate, you have no choice but to be present most of the time during the Tough Mudder. Once you get through an obstacle and you're transitioning from one to the next, then you can kind of contemplate about what happens at the next obstacle, or you can think about what's coming next, or how much of the event is left, or how many obstacles are left. But you shouldn't spend much time, if any, thinking about the past. If you want to think about, okay, I fell, Why did I fall? Well, it's because I did this. Then you can learn a lesson and you can move forward. So it's maybe that you shouldn't spend zero time in the past, but you should spend very little of your time in the past. And that's the same thing with life. So many people are just way too damn concerned about the problems that they've had in the past and the issues they've had in the past and how they failed in the past. And, I've never been able to do anything successful in my life. Instead of recognizing that you can learn from those things, or you can just decide that, okay, well, I'm going to start to think differently, act differently, and be differently. I'm going to be more in the present and I'm going to plan for the future. And that's what I'm going to do. That's where I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to spend the vast majority of my time right here, right now, because this is the only moment of time that I can impact, and it's going to impact the future. It's not going to impact the past at all, because the past is the past. It's done. It's done for. All I can do is kind of learn from that, transition that to today so that I can affect the future. And that's all I can do. So spend 80% of your time today doing what you can do today. Spend 20% of your time thinking about the future, because the future is the motivating part of life. It is what you should be working toward. It is the motivating force that can pull you forward. But spend a very little bit of time in the past. Once you've learned your lesson, it's time to move on. It's time to drop whatever that was that you were hanging on to, and it's time to just let go. Because otherwise, you will never move forward. You'll never move forward. You'll always be stuck in the same place. Okay, and that leads us to the last lesson, which I did not complete right out, but I know what it's supposed to be. I have 2 words here: small wins, but I know what the rest of it is. The last lesson: small wins are what build you into a different person. Small wins are what build you into a different person. You do not become something, become a different person. You do not all of a sudden have confidence once you've achieved a big win in life. Once you've achieved a big goal, once you've achieved some high level of success, you don't then have courage. You don't then have confidence. You don't then have self-respect. Small wins is what helps you do that. Tiny, incremental, day-to-day, moment-to-moment wins is what helps you do that. In the mutter, we did the 10-mile mutter, and there were 20 obstacles that we had to go over. So every obstacle was a small win. And then honestly, the 10 miles in between the obstacles were also small wins. Every step that you took, every movement forward was a small win, but every obstacle was a small win. And we had to get over every obstacle in order to get to the next obstacle, in order to get to the end. And that's the way that it has to happen. And it's the same with goals. You have to get over every obstacle. You have to either get over it, go around it, figure it out, problem solve. You have to do something to maneuver around the obstacle in order to get to the end. And you develop skills and abilities, a lot of that which is the belief in yourself, your competence and your competence to be able to get shit done, to be able to get to that big goal. It doesn't all of a sudden show up. It doesn't all of a sudden just pop up out of nowhere. You develop that through incremental wins, through tiny steps that you take along the way, along the path. And it is in those tiny steps that you develop the skills and abilities. It's in those tiny steps that you problem solve. It's in those tiny steps that you learn to do the things that you think are so insurmountable. Well, I don't know how to be able to do this. I don't know how to be able to problem solve that big problem. Well, you're going to have to go through 10 other problems before you get there. So worry about those once you get to them. And by the time you get to that big problem that you're concerned about, you will have built up a level of confidence and a level of ability to beat that last problem. So trust yourself that you can start by just one small obstacle, the first obstacle in front of you, the first step, the first small thing in front of you. In the Tough Mudder, they generally put, I'll say, easier obstacles in the front, likely, I don't know that this is the reason that they do that, but to build up your belief. You know, they don't throw the hard stuff in the beginning. They're not going to throw, they have this one called Funky Monkey, which is basically upward trajectory handlebars to these wheels that spin in circles that you have to then grab. And I think there were two of those. And then there's wheels that spin horizontally. And then you go to this next thing. Anyway, they wouldn't put that up front because it would be demoralizing. So they start with the easy stuff. You know, here's a couple of things. Here, climb under this barbed wire, climb under this thing, climb over this one wall. You know, a couple of basic, easy obstacles to kind of go. And that's kind of the way, whenever you start something new, most of your obstacles in the beginning they feel insurmountable, but they're pretty simple. They're pretty basic. You can kind of work your way through them, ask somebody how to help, or ask somebody how to get through it. And it's not really as difficult as you make it out to be. But once you do and beat one obstacle, you build belief in yourself and you can move to the next one. And then you overcome that one, and then you move to the next one. And as you move forward, you continue to build that belief in yourself, and that's where the magic comes, and that's where you can achieve those big goals. That's where it happens. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. It doesn't happen with a snap of a finger. It doesn't, you know, these things that you want in your life, these virtues that you want to build, discipline and willpower and all of those, you know, you got to build. It starts by doing them, and it starts by overcoming small temptations and overcoming small, you know, issues and problems and obstacles. That's how it's done. It's not one big swoop. Okay, that's our 5 lessons that we can translate into life so that we can go and we can win better in life. Let's start from the beginning. We'll review all 5 so that we have an understanding of what we went over today. Number 1 is winning is subjective. You have to decide what winning is to you. Don't let other people decide for you, and don't look at other people and say, I can't do that because I can't achieve what that person achieved. Because you don't have to. If you do want to achieve that, then decide what step in front of that you want to start with. Okay? Because that person maybe took 5 steps to get to where they were, so you have to start with their first step. Okay? So decide what success looks like to you. Number 2, it takes a village to win. In all of life and everything that you will do, you will need support and help from other people. You cannot have it any other way. So learn how to effectively collaborate and communicate with people so that you can get what you want, which leads to then number 3, the more people you help win, the more likely you are to win, and generally speaking, the higher success you will have in life. So if you figure out how to effectively collaborate, communicate with people so that they'll help you, you also will be helping them. You will also be able to help more people, and that will increase the likelihood that you'll get what you want. The more people you help, the more likely you are to succeed. Okay? Life is not about focusing myopically on yourself. Can't be done. When you start to help others, when you start to look past yourself, then you can start to see how this law, this lesson, comes into effect. It's about figuring out how you can problem solve and solve issues for other people. That's how you win. That's how you succeed. Okay? Number 4, follow the 80-20 rule. Remember, this is spending 80% of your time in the present, 20% of your time in the future, and almost 0% of your time in the past, because you can't do anything about the past. You can learn from it, but you translate that into the present so that then you can impact the future. Okay? And you use the future as a motivational tool to pull you forward. And that's what we want, which leads to number 5, and that is small wins. That's how you become a different person. That's how you build confidence. That's how you build belief in yourself. That's how you achieve big wins, is through small wins. So you have to go through all these small methodical, seemingly insignificant steps in order to get this outcome that you want in life, both external outcome and internal outcome. You being a better version of yourself. That's what it's going to take. Okay? That's our 5 lessons for today. I hope you can take those and transition those and use them in your life right now. Actually, I'm sure you can, so that you can achieve more in your life and become a better person along the way. Until next time, here's to your 1% growth every day.